Buster Olney, thanks to Buffalo Wild Wings with Armen and Levack every Thursday at 5:15. Best of Buster at 6 o'clock tonight. And Buster, Jorge Posada was on with CBS yesterday, and I'm sure you've heard this interview.
The only thing that I can think is 2003. I was close to the MVP. It didn't happen. Alex won the MVP, and I think second was either Carlos Delgado or David Ortiz. I don't remember. But I was almost there. What could have happened if it's tough. It's really tough.
Buster, it sounds like Jorge has some deep hate, if that's the way you want to put it, some feelings, animosity towards A-Rod. Is that legitimate, or is he just trying to sell this book because he's on his book tour?
I watched, I saw the sequence of questions in the interview, and, as someone who covered Jorge for 4 years, has known him well. His son was born the exact same day my daughter was born. I watched that, and I thought, you know what? He let himself get backed into a corner on some questions and probably went down a path he didn't want to, which I think was confirmed this morning because he now reached out to Alex Rodriguez and basically apologized and said, he said his answers were wrong, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It didn't surprise me that he backtracked on it because when I covered him, I thought he had a really good relationship with Roger Clemens and Alex. I thought, I didn't sense anything other than that. And I think it's probably a reminder for anyone who played in that era. Once you start pulling on those PED threads, I think that I think it probably is going to lead you to a place you don't want to go.
Well, Buster, as you mentioned, you know Jorge personally, and Levack and I don't. So we always had a certain mindset of who he was and the character of the person that he was. And we asked Jim Leyritz about this yesterday on the show, and here's what he had to say.
It is in character with his personality. He was not an easy guy for a lot of the pitchers to get along with. There was a lot of history of him not getting along with certain pitchers. You can't expect everybody to get along in a game of baseball. And I think he was very steadfast in his ways.
That surprised us, the way Jim Leyritz said that. Is that accurate from what you...
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. That's... it was interesting to me, his comments about, Torrey and the way that it ended and all that. There's no doubt. When he caught, David Cohn did not like to throw to him. David Cohn liked to throw to Girardi. Andy Pettitte, and I think this is less about personality than it was just Andy was a creature of habit. Andy didn't like to throw to him when Girardi was on the team. He first preferred to throw to Leyritz, who was not regarded as anything close to what Girardi was as a catcher. But Andy liked having his guy, and Jim was his guy for a long time, and then Joe became his guy after that, and then Jorge did. But there was a time when Andy hated throwing to Jorge. And it was actually a big disagreement between Joe Torre and the front office about Posada. Joe Torre did not want to have Posada as a catcher. There was a period of time. He preferred the stronger defensive catcher. And, the front office was the biggest advocate for Jorge, basically saying, look, this is a guy who's a switch hitter. He gets on base 380%, 300, he's got on base percentage of 380 or 400 plus power. And eventually, if you guys remember, the front office got rid of Girardi as a player because they wanted to force Torrey to play him, and they installed Chris Turner as the backup. And that's how Jorge kind of got established, which is why when I heard Jorge sing about, Joe is like a father figure to me, it made me shake my head a little bit because that was certainly not the relationship that I covered. And this whole thing, Jorge backtracking surprised me a little bit because when I covered him, he was easily the most dead honest player that I covered on those Yankees teams. And what was great about Jorge then is that if he said something, he didn't give you the next day, it was taken out of context, the reporter blew it out of proportion or anything like that. He owned it. It was one of the cool things about covering him.
This is a beautiful example of if you're winning, none of this stuff matters, right?
Well, and I also think over time, history changes. Like, for example, if you guys, I'll give you guys another example. In recent months, we've seen Bryce Harper again voted the most overrated player in baseball, and people talking about they don't like Bryce Harper. I don't know if you guys remember this, but in the late 90s, the guy who always won that poll was Derek Jeter. And now we have a generation of players who were number two because of Derek. But back in the late 90s, in baseball, he was considered to be overrated. And over time, he sort of forgets some of those things.
Wow.
Buster Olney, thanks to Buffalo Wild Wings with Armen and Levack on your home for Yankees baseball, 104.5 The Team.
All right, modern-day Yankees, Buster. Michael Pineda, is he the best pitcher in the AL so far this season?
Boy, I haven't looked at it where I'm comparing him to everybody else in the American League, but he's one of the best pitchers in baseball right now. If you're talking about like who is he one of the 5-10 best pitchers in baseball right now? Without a doubt. And the other day, after his 16 strikeout game, I was at Comerica Park, and I had a conversation with Justin Verlander about him, and we were talking about how some pitchers just ooze athleticism. Like CC Sabathia is a big dude, but that guy is a great athlete. You can see in the way he walks and the way he moves and repeats his delivery. Adam Wainwright's the same way. Mike Leake of the Cincinnati Reds, Greg Maddux was that way. And Michael Pineda is a guy who, when you look at him walk and move, you're like, that guy's not an athlete. He's kind of goofy looking. He's got body parts all over the place, and yet he repeats his delivery like he's an athletic marvel, and he just pounds the strike zone. And, that separates him now from a lot of other people in baseball. When you can paint with a fastball and a slider combination with that. And remember, he's not throwing 98, 99. He's throwing 92 to 94, but with incredible command. That really separates him right now.
Buster Olney with Armen and Levack. Buster, what happens to the Yankees rotation when Capuano gets back?
I got to be honest, I don't know. But my experience in covering baseball is that stuff works itself out. Something's going to happen. Maybe they'll use his return as, a way to rest other people. Maybe they'll drop him in there. Maybe they, go to the 6-man rotation. Maybe somebody else gets hurt. Maybe they just stick him in the bullpen. And then send one of their option guys down to minor leagues. I know from my conversations with Brian Cashman, when he's talked about the depth in their rotation, and this especially came up in the aftermath of Tanaka's injury, he always mentions Capuano as being one of the guys that they're going to be relying on the rotation. So however they're going to do it, my sense is that Brian believes that Capuano is part of the solution.
Buster Olney, thanks to Buffalo Wild Wings. Buster, the Sunday night baseball game a couple weeks ago with you and Tim debating the Mount Rushmore for the New York Yankees was delicious. And then this week you wrote about it. The Yankees are Mount Rushmore, in your opinion, Ruth, Gehrig, DiMaggio, and Rivera. But I know your buddy Kirchin has had a little debate on the other side of things.
Well, and I'm going to, let's make this perfectly clear. I am absolutely in the smallest minority possible when I've got Rivera and my Yankees Mount Rushmore versus what most people do. Most people would put Mantle as the fourth guy. Tim makes a strong case as well as the fifth best guy in Yogi Berra. He's got Yogi as the second best catcher of all time. He has Derek Jeter ahead of Rivera. Here's why I've got Rivera in my Mount Rushmore. I think this organization, its history is built on the postseason. Well, Mariano Rivera is, without a doubt, the greatest postseason performer in Major League Baseball history. Pitcher, position player, whatever. You think about it. He's got 141 innings in his career in the postseason. That's 2 full seasons for a reliever. He has a 0.70 ERA. He allowed 2 home runs in 141 innings in the postseason. And yes, he had blips against Sandy Alomar, Luis Gonzalez, Dave Roberts stealing the base in Game 4 of the ALCS in 2004. But year after year after year after year, game after game, what was the weapon that the Yankees had that no other team had? Was Rivera coming in to get the last 3 to 6 outs. And I remember talking with guys in the Atlanta Braves, and they weren't going to throw their teammates under the bus, but their feeling was that in the 90s, when they won a lot of division championships but didn't win the World Series, except for once, the difference was they didn't have Rivera, and the Yankees did. And if you think about baseball history, how many teams have been taken down by closer situations in the postseason? Calvin Schiraldi, Red Sox, 86. Mark Wohlers giving up a home run to your guy Larritz in 1996. On down the line, the Yankees really never had that issue. And Rivera, that's why I put him in the top 4, but I totally get why someone else would say that's stupid. We think Mantle should be in there.
All right, one of the best debates that we've had, just kind of walk around the office lately is, and I think you're going to like this one: Mike Trout, Bryce Harper, Chris Bryant. Who's the best young player in the game right now?
Well, Mike Trout is. He's the best combination of talents in baseball. I mean, to be that good and to be that accomplished, I think he's going to retire. Hopefully he stays healthy, and I think he will because he plays under control. I think he's going to retire as arguably one of the 2 or 3 greatest players of all time. However, I think the question's a worthy one, and it's not a silly one because Bryce Harper's ridiculous. As I mentioned, that vote about him being overrated, I just laugh at that. I mean, my goodness, this guy right now leads the major leagues in walks. He's 22 years old. He's showing patience. He's going to finish this season probably with his somewhere around 100 career homers. And he's 22 years old. He doesn't turn 23 until October. And Chris Bryant, he actually is older than Bryce Harper, but the skills that he's showing, the patience at the plate, the power. The other day, he hit a rocket off the right field wall in Fenway Park and ran the bases well for a triple. And the sound of the ball hitting the wall out there was like when you guys were kids and you played wiffle ball and you hit it off your mom's window, okay? Just to be able to be a right-handed hitter to hit a ball that way, that's incredible. How blessed is baseball to have those 3 guys and Clayton Kershaw, Giancarlo Stanton, Andrew McCutcheon. It's a great generation of players.
Buster Olney thinks the Buffalo Wild Wings with Armen and Levack on 104.5 The Team. And Buster, the Mets have had a hard time scoring runs, to say the least, here of late. With Syndergaard back, do they look to try to bring in a bat like a Tulowitzki? Is a trade on the horizon for the Mets?
I think they'll look into it, and I know Tulowitzki's a hot name. I think that there's so many obstacles in front of a Tulowitzki trade that it may just turn out to be hard. It would require the Mets to invest heavily in a player who has averaged 88 games a season for the last 3 seasons, full seasons. He's owed $114 million. The Mets have these looming financial obligations with these pitchers in the years ahead. So I just don't necessarily think that they're going to give the Rockies what the Rockies are going to require for their Cal Ripken, for their franchise player. And I know this, that the Mets love this young shortstop in their farm system, Ahmed Rosario, and they think that he's a long-term solution. So I don't see that per se, but it wouldn't surprise me if you do see the Mets, shake things up, look for some sort of an upgrade, shortstop, third base. We'll see. I'll give you an example. I do think at some point that Oakland's probably going to put Ben Zobrist on the market this summer. Maybe in a month. He's coming back from a knee injury right now. He could be an interesting guy. I don't think you're going to see some huge major deal because that just doesn't feel like it's Sandy Allison's way. I think you're going to see more of an incremental thing and them just hoarding their pitching.
Buster, I'm following your Twitter, and I noticed that you got some interesting comments on the soap opera that is Deflategate.
Yeah, and I just love this story because it's fascinating. And I mentioned last week when the whole thing broke that after you saw the Wells report that I think people think that the NFL needs to have a legal standard. They don't. It's a private business, and I mentioned that they really ought to just use the parental standard. That when your kid walks in. You walk into the kitchen, your kid's got his face covered in chocolate, his hands are covered in chocolate, and the cookie jar's open, and you look at that, and you ask your kid, well, did you get into the cookie jar? And the kid looks at you and says, no, and then you come down with a hammer on the discipline because you know it's right. It's the same thing. Tom Brady's got chocolate all over his face, he's got chocolate all over his hands. I'm not buying any of the stuff they're putting out there. And I felt bad for these 2 ball boys, equipment guys, who seemed like they were being hung out earlier. But as this thing plays out, and you have the Patriots putting out a statement, and them standing on their ground and talking about lawsuits. And by the way, I'd love to be in there for the Tom Brady deposition that would result in that. But the leverage of these 2 guys. Because the Patriots' whole story hinges on these 2 guys, and there are a lot of news outlets who would love to talk to them. There are probably some people even willing to pay for their story. These 2 guys, they're in a good position with the Patriots.
Well, Levack and I find it interesting that, it was Robert Kraft and the Patriots let these guys go, but then today we have the website from the Patriots defending these 2 guys. Well, then why did you let them go? There's a lot of mixed messages here throughout the entire. It is like a roller coaster every day. There's something different.
Yeah, and I'd love to see the bank accounts of those two guys and see how they're doing these days. I don't know anything, but I think it'd be one of the first things I'd ask the question. And are these guys, they having to go work at grab the first job they can after being let go by the Patriots, or do they get some support from other places as the Patriots put out their story?
A little bit of hush money. I mean, I'm just.
I didn't say that. I just said I'd be curious about if they're getting money.
He's Buster Olney. Go to ESPN.com to read his stuff. It's worth a few bucks a month, by the way, to become an insider, man. Levack and I read it every single day. Buster, always enjoy having you on every Thursday. Thanks for your time today. We look forward to next week.
All right, guys. Thanks. See ya.
Thank you, Buster.
He's Buster Olney. Thanks to Buffalo Wild Wings every Thursday at 5:15. Best of Buster at 6 o'clock when we have the Yankees pregame like tonight. In Levack, you and I love us some Buffalo Wild Wings, man.
Oh, man, happy hour specials. I mean, every hour is happy for me when I'm over there because the food. I love the food. I've been wearing the jersey they gave me. I sneak right in, I grab your order, and I eat it. So if you're ever at your table, you're like, where's my order? They're like, we don't know. It's because I took it.
Love Buffalo Wild Wings at Clifton Park Center. Not the brightest move ever by giving us the employee shirt with our names on them. We just walk back there, go, hey guys, how you doing? Order up, and just grab a plate and walk out.
Yeah, and literally, it's beautiful. Sometimes I order a plate and I'll just hand it off. So like, you might get free food if you go to when I'm in there.
And it's funny too because I've always loved Buffalo Wild Wings because of their wings for obvious reasons.
Yep.
But the cheesecake bites are incredible.
Their
cheese
menu
sticks we had last time.
Since that place opened up in Clifton Park, I swear their menu has expanded exponentially. Yeah. Big word.
That is a big word for you. For you, the meters just blew up, ladies and gentlemen. I don't even know what that means. But that happened. Buffalo Wild Wings, Clifton Park Center. Go see them, man. Tell them Armen and Levack sent you on 104.5 The Team as well.